Hello, YouTube. This is Kevin with the Weird Homes Tour. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are unfamiliar with the Weird Homes Tour, we do virtual home tours of unique and eclectic homes all across the USA. We have a new home that we feature every week. So if you want to see more homes, more interesting homes, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos, hit the subscription button, ring the bell for notifications, all that fun YouTube stuff. And yeah, this week we are super excited to have Justin Fornal. He is a international explorer and cultural detective, and he is also the host of the Science Channel's Unexplained and Unexplored. And as you can imagine, his Victorian mansion is going to be super interesting. Lots of secrets and surprises that we are going to see along the way. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing? It's great to be
well.
here.
Doing well.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening.
Yeah, well, why don't you get started and kind of show us around your place? We'll ask some questions along the way, and anyone who is watching us live, be sure to type in your questions in the chat box, and then we'll get to them along the way. Does that sound good?
Sounds great to me.
All right. Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I'll say is everything you're about to see was done in a relatively cheap way. Almost everything that we have here in the home was either gifted by folks who knew that I like to decorate in an unusual way. The house itself was built in 1897 by the company of Bacon and Brite, and these were two architects who were responsible for the Lincoln Memorial, the original Madison Square Garden, and this was one of the very few houses that they built. Myself, in my family, my wife, my daughter, we had been looking for. We've been living in apartments, Bronx apartments, for well over 20 years, and had been trying to find a house, and then lost after house after house, bid after bid, kept losing, and eventually this house just came up at the right time. So anything that you're about to see, once again, when I did move in here, everything had been painted white. Everything that was original had been painted over by the last two folks who lived here. So although so much was lost to history, the original wallpaper, the ceiling decorations, at the same time it was a blank canvas. So it's a very interesting way to start off. So anything you see here was done by either myself or with myself and my father, just with things we learned, things we already knew, things we learned online. So certainly I'll be open to any questions even after this interview is finished, because I've made every possible mistake you can make when trying to make a house a special place, but within there have certainly learned some very valuable lessons. So we'll start to take you on a little bit of a tour here. I'm going to turn this camera around, so don't mind me fumbling.
Yeah, everyone's super excited. People are really digging your jacket. By the way.
Thank you so much. So this is my office. This is Fornal Lab. This is where I do all my work, and done a lot of writing for National Geographic and other publications, and give a lot of lectures. So a lot of the plants and talismanic items I talk about will come here to dry out, to be stored, and certainly to fill my day with their magic. At the center, we have a beautiful voodoo flag of Baron Samedi, which was made by a dear friend of mine, Rose Carleen, who's a voodoo queen. And this has been something that's traveled everywhere we've gone. And certainly it's the centerpiece to my work in my office. So if you look around the room right here, you have this purple damask wallpaper. And this was a long time dream, was to have wallpaper like this. But of course, when you find there's only a few places in the world that make it, you're like, okay, well, I certainly can't afford that. So I did some research, and this is actually fabric. This is purple satin taffeta with raised black damask velvet frocking. And what we did was we actually applied it to the wall using wallpaper glue. And of all the apartments I lived in the Bronx, I never put paint to wall because I'm like, oh, we're going to move. And but the good part about this is you can do this to your wall using essentially any fabric. And then when it's time to move, you can just pull it right down, and the walls are just as they were when you found them. Look, here we have, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a little fella, but this is a bed of nails that we made. I learned from my good friend, Uber Damey, who's a circus performer, how to make that. And we made that with basically things that we were able to acquire at Home Depot. And then right over here, you'll see aside from the coffin, here's a window treatment. And so a lot of the window treatments you're going to see in this house are made from found materials. My father years ago had a business that was above a funeral home. And so little bits and pieces from the funerals we would find in the staircases and kind of borrow. So in the centerpiece, you could see this is actually an inverted funeral kneeler that would be, you would kneel on at a wake when you approach the coffin. The two pieces on the side are repurposed doors from an entertainment center that someone gave me. And like I said, we just working with these pieces, repurposing them, giving them a new life and a bit of a new identity. And then over here, as you can see, had always gotten a kick out of all those clocks when you see it's Hong Kong, London, New York. And so for what's more important in this office is we have all the important places like the Bronx, Zulu time, which is also Greenwich Mean, Mogadishu, Somalia, and of course, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. So this is the office. And one thing you will notice as we go throughout the house is that all the ceilings are painted. I've done extensive research in old Victorian books and catalogs. And there was a great quote, and forgive me for not knowing who said it, but it was, a ceiling that is painted is like a world without a sky. So it's one more thing that's been, one of the great pleasures is when you're doing a room to find some other version of that color, perhaps obviously you want it a little bit lighter, but to paint every ceiling that you come in contact with. This door was a gift from my friend Dimitri D'Alessandro, who has a business in Middletown, Connecticut. And I said, hey man, I know you got a lot of stuff in your basement. Do you have a door with glass, like one of those old detective doors? And he's like, I have the exact door you're looking for. So once again, always asking, always looking. And what I do encourage folks to do is always have tie downs in your car, because you never know when someone's going to have something free you can use in your home. Any questions so far?
Not from the audience, but I have a question. So
Sure.
you have a lot of amazing stuff in your home from what I see so far. Are you going out and hunting for specific items, or are you coming across items and are inspired to do something with it?
You said in terms of taxidermy?
Taxidermy or decoration? Are you specifically hunting for items? Or are you finding items
we have a game
and
dinner every
incorporating them?
year. We team up with hunters from New Jersey who are hunting these animals, and then a lot of times they're not using the meat, so we'll always utilize the meat. And then I have a friend who's an incredible taxidermist, her name is Divya, and I believe she's done one of these chats. And so her and I will usually come together and do one piece together a year. And usually they come in the form, they'll be made into a tobacco pipe to honor the spirit of the animal. And so you'll see several more of the pieces that we've done over the years. And so usually these are all, to us, essentially they're bycatch. We're not going out and purposely finding these animals, but these are animals that were already being utilized by the hunters, by the old school hunters. And so we're just utilizing the extra pieces.
Amazing. Well, let's see more.
Sure. So this is the front room when you first enter, and this is the most recent room to really start to go to work. This is one I wanted to wait to do for a long time, and it was inspired, funny enough, by this egg. So this is a music box, and it's a copy of a Fabergé egg, and it's kind of this red gold color. And sorry about the lighting, guys, but just so you get an idea of what we're trying to achieve here. So you've got this red gold enamel kind of look. So this room right now, as you can see, this is really a red primer, and the entire room, including the ceiling and the floor, will be this almost like a blood red color. And we have this very large horse, which you can mount if you visit. It is secured to the floor. And this was a gift from a dear witch friend of mine named Shine, and she had two horse sculptures, another one you'll see in a bit. And she was moving, and she said, you're the only person I can trust to take my horses and do something with them. So once again, I had the tie downs in the car and transported the horse to my house, creating a bit of controversy with, my family who lives here as well. But so this whole room, once again, it'll be a much deeper red, and then it'll be complemented with a lot of gold offsetting it. Certainly a lot of the influence also came from the Russian red tea room. And I said, I want the most red room you can have. And so, sorry about the light, guys, but also you'll see these ceiling tiles. This is a red ceiling tile. There's a place in the Bronx called the Fordham Supply Company. It was the oldest tool store, really. And they've been in business over 100 years. They went out of business. They called me up and said, do you want to come and take our old cabinets? And when I went there, I said, I'd also love to take your ceiling tiles. These were completely rusted, completely destroyed. So I sanded them down, primered them, and piece by piece are bringing each one into this red and gold color scheme. And they will be on our ceiling. And if you look at these two large pieces here, you can see this behind the horse. Sorry about the movement. And this piece here, I was helping a friend move out of the Honeywell apartments, also in the Bronx, in a rainstorm late one night. And I saw these pieces, an additional piece, and I just let him know. I said, I'm going to take these home with me, but I can't take them tonight. So I know you're moving out, but as my fee for helping you, just put these in your apartment until tomorrow. And once again, these are fiberglass. They're very light, but once they've got a new primer on them, and we're going to hit them with some gold, they're going to, it'll really resemble plaster when we're finished. So this room will be something really wild in just a few months. Which brings us to the Emerald Room. So here we are. This was one of the first rooms I decided to tackle in the house. And once again, everything here was white. The ceiling, all these walls. And we tried to go for something really in just a big classic Victorian look. So we did burgundy curtains, and this is a paint called chlorophyll. And what I did here was applied the paint and then did like just a very kind of did a sponging, but very almost in the exact same hue, and then applied these little Victorian stencils. And then if you can see the room, sorry guys, the expanse of the room here. This is a room where when we have parties, and I invite you all to join us, this is where folks will gather. There's 7 fireplaces in the house, all working. And so I think the thing worth talking about here is these window treatments. So these were both, these windows only go to where this stops here. The windows stop here. So to give the illusion of size and floor to ceiling, I did the treatments above there, and we put the frames up top. And these were actually mirrors that were on my mother's old, I guess, beauty table, you'd call it. So those match here. And then I just got a bunch of different, bunch of fabric and made the curtains. And then none of these curtains have backing so that they do allow the light through. But the actual panel does have a backing in it so that you don't want to get too much light in here during the day. This is an old player piano that was gifted to me by my great uncle. And a lot of things you're going to see, it's like, oh, that's really great. But trust me, nobody else wanted it. I was essentially the person where they're like, oh, you know who might want it? Justin might want it. And all these candelabras, there's 10 candelabras in here. Each one, they all came, a flower shop was just going out of business. And I got the call from a friend. And he said, you want to get these candelabras? And I said, I really do. So this bar, one of the dreams was to have a canopy bar. So a canopy bar is a bar that you've got the wood on the bottom, and then you have the wooden canopy on the top. There's a piece of stained glass there that's a little bright. So this was an interesting thing. I looked up canopy bars online. I said, well, I could barely pay the mortgage here or the heat. So there's no way in hell I'm buying a canopy bar. However, as fortune would have it, the previous owner left behind a giant armoire with this beautiful burled walnut wood you can see here. So I called my father and I said, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about chopping up this armoire with a saber saw and turning it into a bar. What do you think about that? And he said, well, why don't you sell the armoire and buy the bar? I said, let's cut out the middleman. So we cut this thing up, chopped it up, flipped it on its side. And then obviously you want your top of your bar to have really the most interesting story to it. So once again, going back to that my father worked above a funeral home, if you can take a look at this, you can look at the size. I think almost any of us on the call could fit on this if we were ice cold, and this is a mortician's table. So my father had stored this away and was going to convert it into a toboggan. And so once again, created a bit of controversy that I wanted to use it for the bar top. And I said, Dad, if this would be a great bar top, because we could just pour grain alcohol on it, light the whole thing on fire. Anyone who, after a few drinks, we tell anyone what it is, they're going to, have a meltdown, which would be fantastic. So I said, my deal was that I would never bolt it down. So right now I could lift this whole thing up. So just in case we get a big winter, my father may need to borrow this and use it as a toboggan. And he still has that option. So I want to show you one more. And once again, here's the old picture of my great-grandparents from Naples. And the rest of the family thought that it might be most appropriate and fitting to have the original picture here. One more window treatment, if I could share with you, is this one. And once again, this is an old headboard. I've been told this was the headboard I was conceived in this bed, which is very, yeah, it's fantastic. Just great. But so if you take a look there, you just see the outline of the headboard. And I went in there with a jigsaw and cut out the center of it. So almost all the window treatments you're going to see in this house were created from headboards. And if folks are looking for, and you see the bed knobs and if you're looking for ornate wood to repurpose, a lot of times the headboards are going to have that personality. And you can turn them into banisters. You can turn them into just about anything you'd like to do that might be interesting or ornate in your house. So if you don't mind, any questions as we're going? I don't want to just blab away.
Yeah, well, I'll shoot another question. It looks like all these rooms have like really strong colors. Yes. Was that the original intention? Did you want like each room to be so separate from each other, or was it just kind of you were starting to decorate and then it just kind of happened to start to be like, oh, this fits better with a green room, this fits better with a red room, that sort of thing?
No, you're absolutely right. And I really, as an artist, the main things I do, I really love color. And even in the way I dress, if I'm going to wear pink, I'm going to wear pink. If I'm going to wear black, I'm going to wear black. And so I wanted each room to not only have just a little bit of its own feel, where the red room is this kind of very grand, barbaric, gateway to hell. Then you have the green room, which is something much more in a Victorian sensibility. And so I said, in each direction that you looked in the house, you'd have just a hard splash. And I feel a lot of the other interiors you'd see, it's really balanced out. And I wanted less balance and more, you really got to take, when you go in there, you taste that green. You might want to have a green drink. You might want to have a red drink in the front room. Whatever it is, you might, I wanted you to feel almost assaulted by the strength of that color. And there's certainly things that you'll see more balanced areas, but certainly on the first floor, I wanted really folks to, you look over there and you really get a sense of it. There's no middle ground,
Yeah, it's like every room is, I would imagine it to be in a different house. And this room, oh my God.
So this, blue
and white,
this room is the Delft tea room, and this is the dining area. And the idea here was really inspired by a love of tea. And this is, so these are actually Blue Danube that belong to my grandmother, but they're in that Delft style, and Delft being a city of Holland where you see all this blue and white china coming from. These were just room dividers that I got at an antique store for a steal and turned them into shutters. And then once again, take a look at this wallpaper. So I'm looking for Delft wallpaper, believe it or not, looking online, and there's like one place in London who makes it. There's no way in hell that I can possibly purchase it. And then I don't know if it was Target or Walmart, and I don't know what I was even doing in there, but then I see these duvet, these comforter covers, and they were $25 a piece, and they were double-sided. If I was buying the raw material, there's no way in hell I could possibly have gotten a better deal. So this entire room would have cost thousands of dollars to wallpaper. I did for about $100. So it's just to show you that it's always having that eye when you're thinking about decorating or doing something interesting in the interior. You're always looking and you're always obsessing, And so once again, we have these are tiles that I put in on the ceiling. Sorry about the light if it's a little bright, but this is a Moroccan table that a friend gave me that I used as the medallion. The chandelier was two nice ladies were moving out of an old house down the street. They gave me this. The chandelier was black at the time, so I painted it gold and added some of the blue elements you're seeing on it. And then we have some stuff over here. This is the Delft octopus. So this was an octopus. I was looking for a taxidermied octopus to put on the wall in honor of the tea and as an open water swimmer, kind of those beautiful animals of the deep. And it was originally white, and then obviously a blue ringed octopus has more of a yellow tinge to it, but I thought it would be a little kind of fun and cheeky to have a blue ringed octopus, as it is essentially the Delft octopus, holding on to a bunch of these these teacups. The frame there was just something that was on like the 4th floor of the Andrew Friedman home that nobody wanted, and I asked him if I could have it. And then we have the front here. So you see this repeating theme, and once again, if you were here in person, you could get a little bit idea of the lighting. But here we've continued, throughout here you'll see a story. You can see it's all written in Dutch. So it's a poem that's kind of telling the story of going after the ocean. You see my daughter's silhouette there. And the idea of what this ship is carrying, the spices, the teas, and then we have the battle in the high sea. And it's just a narrative that's kind of following its way around for you to kind of enjoy while you're having the tea. And as a person who's been out, in the ocean swimming for long distances during the cold times, you certainly can appreciate the ferocity of the ocean. And then, of course, the sanctity and comfort of the hearth that's waiting for you. So this room is really about that balance of the warm and the cold. I was originally going to do the entire ceiling like this, and then I realized that I think it would be too much. So I'm just doing the 4 corners with this design on the ceiling tiles.
Amazing. And yeah, and that whole room has such a sense of adventure about it.
It's a fun room, and especially when the lights are out and just the candles are lit, and you really feel like you're in a separate place. And we'll be doing tea tastings in there soon enough, and that should be open to the public. And one thing I'll say, I know we're kind of stuck on this shot right here, but this is a colonial. So this is a colonial, Federalist colonial, and one of the biggest differences between that and a Victorian is that you do have these. The house is shaped like a wedding cake, as opposed to a Victorian, which has these beautiful turrets and high places and low places. This house is very square. And what that does allow is these big square rooms with very high ceilings. One of the strange things that Bacon and Brite did is they certainly had a fetish for doors. This room has 9 doors and 10 doorways. So I've actually been, to make secret passageways and to essentially make the rooms bigger, I've been actually covering up doors, closing them off and building walls over them. And also to make this house as safe as possible, it is built like a fortress. And we do have these weapon slits. This one I've exposed for the evening for your enjoyment, but this actually has a latch on it so it closes, so that in an emergency situation, my daughter could shoot someone in the throat with a crossbow bolt. So there's all these places you can hide and essentially stick out weapons just like you would if it was an actual fortress. So here we are.
I was going to say, speaking of the secret rooms, I could totally see, spending the night in your house, and then there's a portrait where there's some like real eyes behind it that's watching you.
That'll definitely happen. That'll certainly be the case. Once again, you can see these are some of these Victorian. So once you buy about 5 Victorian stencils, you'll just keep using them over and over and over again. And as you can see, I did the stencils here in a repeated pattern, and then you just complement it with all the other colors that you're utilizing for the room. So sorry about the turn, but you can see here, so with the banister, we have that same color scheme. And I'm trying to experiment more with colors that I'm not naturally attracted to. And you're like, wow, what a crazy combination. This is not, purple or green or pink, but it's something, when you start playing with them, it's really liberating to start to put together these different colors. And you can see the stencil work on these, the front of these stairs as well. So while
amazing.
I think a lot of things were lost to history, unfortunately, when the house was painted over, it did allow a blank white canvas to start again. So if we're coming up here now, I think obviously a lot of folks have said the house is haunted. My daughter did see a free floating apparition. I've had 1 or 2 strange situations, nothing that I would term as haunted, but I think the most haunted piece in the house is this here. So I was filming a documentary at a plantation in Mississippi. And while we were on the grounds, I went into one of the old barns and I saw this. And this was just wood. It was natural wood. And I asked the owners, and I said, oh, you can take it home if you want. And I said, okay. So I took it home, and when I got to the airport, I was just carrying this large piece of wood. And I said, I'm taking this on the plane no matter what. And they said, okay, well, it's a surfboard. I said, okay, it's a surfboard. So I wrapped it up and took it home. But this was in the original plantation house that burnt down. So certainly, no matter what, and this has got some very heavy energy in it. So I gave this a very firm cleaning. And when I say cleaning, I don't mean that I just washed it off. But I think it's got some pretty good energy now. And if you take a look here, this was this centerpiece I made out of 1/4 inch plywood and did different zodiac symbols and had the colors on the, once again, that's just a plastic or fiberglass centerpiece bought at Home Depot. Not to give them a shout out, but just to let you know that this was all just stuff we put together. Once again, we have a headboard here for the piece above the window, but instead of the classic where it's down the center, I cut it in half and then flipped it and then repainted it. So just to give it to you, you look at these old images, or you'll see a movie with a big crazy haunted place, and they always have these incredible, beautiful set pieces. And so we're trying to recreate some of that flavor, but once again, I certainly can't afford to buy original. So this is, sorry about that. This is the dressing room here. This was a chandelier that my dear friend Michael Max gave as a housewarming gift. I believe he bought it for his lady friend, and then they may have parted ways. And it ended up here. So, but once again, here we are. This was all 3/4 inch plywood that we just assembled to build these different kind of clothing racks. And was really inspired by the colors of Victoria's Secret, which are that really soft pink, that chocolate brown, that delicious chocolate brown, and that really funky fuchsia magenta. These window treatments, these are another one of those ceiling tiles that you can see. It's a ceiling tile that's been cleaned up. This is from the soon to be demolished tool store in the Bronx. Took these babies up, polished them up, and then just made them work. And I'll give you a little taste of, without showing myself in the mirror. Here's, once again, you have these fireplace inserts. This was, I don't want to say it was rusty, but it was definitely worn. So I just sanded it down and gave it some of that really heavy, dense black paint for really outdoor stuff. And it really gave it a, and it's high heat as well. And then took some old andirons. Once again, andirons, whenever I find them, anything brass, anything old, I'll take it. And forgive me for the term, but I actually bedazzled these little andirons. And then we have a masthead just from it's just really, just killer price at a local antique shop. And this is actually from the Great and Glorious Army of the Bronx. This is the official sash. So that's where it rests until we have to march, and as we do annually, take Marble Hill back from Manhattan for the borough of the Bronx. Any questions so far? Because I think we're about to go downstairs, which should be getting close to wrapping up.
Yeah, Niles wants to know, this has been a labor of love for you working on your home, and I know that it's a process that you're still kind of in the middle of. Do you have any more rooms with planned colors that's kind of in the works? Like, are there any other kind of strong rooms that you're planning on doing in the future?
Absolutely. So I won't show any of the private space in the home, but right behind this wall will, that door will be gone. This entire wall will be a floor to ceiling mirror. So it'll give you, and we're going to do something, this is the original linoleum, and believe me, so if anyone's upset with me for saying so, I've done everything I can to bring this back to life, but it's just too far gone. So I'm going to do something interesting on top of this. And this is, like I said, this is 100-year-old linoleum, but there'll be something very interesting here, and there'll be a mirror there. So we'll have this really sense of just length. This will feel really long. And this horse will probably be against that mirror. Once again, this horse was given to me by Shine, my favorite witch, who was just like, hey, I'm moving. I can't take him with me. But behind this wall will be, it's a library. And we've been building the library. And the entire room, it's a combination of paying an homage to the decapitated John the Baptist, as well as the decapitated Hindu deity, Chinnamasta. So those two deities will be facing each other across the room with very ornate. If you've seen those, they're like Argentinian hearses from the early 1900s. It's going to really feel like one of those carved hearses. We've got it'll be like, all types of religious iconography, just crazy statues mixed in with the bookcases. But the entire room will be an aged copper patina. So funny enough, just last night I was obsessively looking at different ways to achieve that. So it'll be that greenish. I'll do the whole room in a copper, and then do the entire thing with the patina. And there's the greenish patina and there's the bluish patina. I think it's going to be kind of right in the middle. And so we'll do the whole room in copper, and then hit it with the greenish blue, and then just kind of give it a bit of a scrub to expose the copper beneath, and it'll be breathtaking. And my good friend Kelfire Bray, who's done some great things over here as well, he's looking for 2 domed porter chairs. So if anyone knows where I could possibly have donated 2 domed porter chairs, or get one for a reasonable price, that'll be the centerpiece of the room. And we already have 800 volumes that I've collected over the past 20 years of just books on obscure topics, and those books will be available to the public, folks who want to join the library to view those books, or to go in there and smoke a pipe, or have a smoky peaty whiskey.
Amazing. So for all of you who are watching, if you have the inside scoop on some dome porter chairs, drop a comment in the box, let us know. Justin, for all those people who are watching this and are just kind of sick of staring at their own kind of white walls, and they want to do something a little bit different, a little bit out of the box, what words of wisdom would you tell them when they want to get started to do something a little bit simpler?
I would pick a space, and I would pick a few colors, and I would look at, and get an idea of what it is you're trying to get. And then really the way I did this house was going back, from my much younger years. I was doing independent films with zero budget, and folks who had access to funds that I didn't have. I wanted things to look really interesting and opulent, and have a certain antiquitous style to them. And it was in that period I figured out how to do things with less money. But like I said, it was an obsession. So there is nothing that's outside of the realm of making a room into a special place. And I think the biggest influence came from when we lived in the Bronx. I bought one of those tents that you'd have in your yard, that you'd bring to the beach and put your chairs on it. So it was one of those, like a gazebo style tent. So I bought one of those tents, and I said, well, I'm going to have one spot in this apartment that's going to be an escape, a magical place. And it was the hookah tent. So in the center of the tent was the hookah, and then anything, I put walls of fabric around the tent. I put all pillows in there, and folks would come to the apartment, and you'd sit in there and you'd hear some music from a far off place, and you really felt transported. So it was creating that sense of being in another place, no matter where you are. And it could be done with next to nothing, and if you light, some frankincense and some myrrh, and you have some, whatever it is, I don't want to pick what people's poisons might be, but certainly create. And once again, we're talking about painting the ceilings, floor to ceiling. It's like, if you're going to wear a specific suit, why not have specific socks, specific underwear, specific shoes, whatever it is, floor to ceiling, every corner of that room. It could be a tiniest space. It could be a closet. You know what I mean? And those were the situations. We're building a little tent inside of this apartment, and having that be a really special space. So when you went in there, you felt, it was a place you could always go smoke the hookah, and no matter what was going on in the world, you had that sense of traveling,
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so just go ahead and go out with the paint, floor to ceiling, and if you wanted to just get started with something and then build upon it, right?
Exactly. And like I said, if once again, spent so many years in apartments and didn't know that I could take fabric, use wallpaper glue it to the walls, and then when I leave, just rip it right down, and the none the wiser when he comes to try and charge you some absurd amount to paint the shit white again. You know what I mean?
Well,
I thought it might be, if there's no other question, I was going to take you into one of the secret passageways to end the evening. We'll see how that, if you guys are ready.
yeah. Well, but before you do, Justin,
Sure.
where would people go if they want to learn more about you, your work, your show, that sort of
Sure.
thing? Where should we send people?
Sure. Well, justinfornal.com is where I post if you want to read any of the pieces I've written or see some links to the show and upcoming expeditions. But certainly, I'm relatively new to Instagram and I'm a bit clumsy when it comes to technology. But at Justin_Fornal is really where I'll be gearing most of my, just on a daily basis, trying to to keep up with the times and post things. Certainly a lot of plants, a lot of talismanic items, a lot of different ideas in terms of repurposing and refurbishing things. So that would really be the best place. And I look forward to speaking with everyone as well. Feel free to slide into the DMs with any questions you might have about the house or about different unusual plants or talismans or bits of history.
Nice. So justinfornal.com. And yeah, why don't you show us one of these hidden passages?
Sure, absolutely. So what I'm just going to do is follow the sound of my voice. I do want to keep it, obviously, for safety reasons. And the purpose of a lot of these secret passageways is for safety. So I'm going to take you inside one right now. Let me see if I can't. Okay, can you guys see that all right? Now, it's a little tricky getting.
Yeah, you're good.
Take off my jacket because, like I said, they're not big secret passageways like Scooby-Doo. These are spaces within the house that were not utilized. And when I looked at the blueprints, I realized there wasn't many of them at all. So can you guys see me here? Okay. So the secret passage, other ones we've made, they've actually been closed off spaces. But this, I'm going to turn the camera around. Hold on, everybody. This was actually a cosmetic arch that I found inside the house. So this is between floors. And essentially this was plaster. There's the top of a plaster arch. And I looked inside, I said, well, it's definitely not going to hold my weight. However, if we essentially built the train track in here, myself, my father, and a dear friend of mine, a wonderful caver, Christopher Beauchamp. He was the first one in because he weighs like 160 pounds and I weigh about 240 pounds. So this is perfect size for my daughter. But the first time I got in here, I was a little concerned that I might die here. So I've gotten better at it. But as you can see, we have some fun lighting, and it's a great place to stop and have a whiskey. But I'm going to try and take you guys all the way through and exit out the other side. If there's any other questions.
No questions, but be careful. We don't want you.
Can you hear me there?
Oh, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
All right, I may have lost. Okay, here we go. We back in?
Yeah, we can see you.
Like I said, it's much easier when I'm not also doing some camera work. But did I lose you again? Sorry, guys. I apologize. Okay, all right. We're gonna finish this off here. Don't worry. So I can see a lot of friends have thought they were going to go through the passageway, and then about 5 feet in, they said, "You know what? I'm going to call it a day." If I lose you and you can just hear me, I'm going to come out the other side here. Okay. All right, we're at the other side. Sorry, guys. Okay, we all right there? Am I still with you?
We can see you now. Yeah, we're with you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to bid you guys adieu. I'll leave you down here. I'm going to go up there and come out the other side. And all right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Sorry about the sloppy camera work, but it's a little strange. Anything you'd like to close out on?
No. Thank you so much, Justin, for sharing your amazing home and your secret passageways. I mean, I can't think of a more fun home to spend time with. And thank you, everyone, for joining us in this video. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the Weird Homes Tour YouTube channel. We do one about once a week. And yeah, just hit the notification, all that fun stuff. And Justin is leaving us, and we will leave you as well. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you next week. And you know what? I think I'm just going to leave too, and we're just going to leave you here in the secret passage with Justin. So everyone have a great night.